Full respect, I've never seen a Muslim saying, I'm an atheist. You're 1%, you're not normal. Hindu liberals ko puche, I'm an atheist. What part of that education system went wrong for them today?
I think what is extremely important that our country needs is going back to our roots, especially our Vedic culture, our culture of the Vedas, our culture of our books, and reading them because they're actually very scientific.
What was the tipping point in your life where you realized, I think I'm a more centered human being, whether I belong to the incumbent or the opposition at any point at this point?
Some of the position the opposition was taking, and I would think that it's not needed. We are wasting time on silly ideas and silly fights. Maybe the BJP was instigating it, but they're a political party, they don't do it. Why are you taking the bait?
It'd be nice to hear two good things about the Prime Minister.
I love the fact that he withdrew 370, Article 370. I think that was fabulous.
Massively contentious, like it was.
Number two, I like his leadership on a global scale.
If tomorrow, hypothetically, you're in a leadership position, your job is to take that complex ideas and simplify it enough.
True.
So that the bureaucrats that you fired and rehired should be able to understand it, and you get a more, let's say, progressive country.
Ultimately, what is the Indian way of life? The Indian way of life is dialogue. At the end of the day, when Ram kills Ravan, and Ravan's lying dying, Ram tells Lakshman to go and imbibe knowledge from him. Even then, even in that position, there is dialogue.
Hi, welcome to Shweta Talkies. Today we have Tehseen Poonawalla. When you go to his Instagram account, it says he's a political analyst, an atheist, and a venture capitalist. Today we are sitting and trying to peel off two aspects, the political analyst side and the atheist sides. We also talk about a future, some kind of a future that he thinks he can paint. This is going to be candid. See you. Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very happy, and you know, it's amazing how much energy you have considering you're fasting.
Thank you so much, but yeah. But I anyways do one meal a day.
Great. When I first met him, he drank water. He's a bit of a bougie with his green labeled water, a little bit of orange. I had a panic attack, but I think he's comfortable here.
Very comfortable,
and
thank you.
we have happily agreed to have a conversation instead of a debate.
That's true.
Good idea.
Conversations always welcome.
Hannah?
Yeah.
And I'll be asking from the side which you may not be because you're a center.
Yeah.
My first question is, how comfortable or convenient is it to be called a center?
I think it's convenient and comfortable to be called a centrist. The issue with that is the extremes on both sides, the fringe elements on both sides, the extreme right, who I call the rowdy right, and the loony left. They sort of boycott you. And I often say this, that it's like the horseshoe theory. And the loony left and the rowdy right think they're poles apart, but they're actually very close to each other, like the ends of the horseshoe, which are very close to each other. So I call this the horseshoe theory. There's not much difference between the two of them. But the loony left is a little bit more loony.
Yeah, that whole hard work, we're going to get into it later.
Yeah.
You come from a certain amount of comfort in front of camera.
Yeah.
You were smart enough to change it into vertical expertise, right? You're on camera, you're holding your ground on certain points. Sometimes, I must admit, I don't know what your ground is. Or people who actually bracket themselves do not know what your ground is. Defend yourself.
My ground is India.
I like that.
India must be first. India must progress. And what is good for India must be the only points that I put forward. For example, if I were to criticize the BJP, which is the government now, and we should be more critical of the government because they are in government. That's democracy 101. Then I would criticize them on the tax structure in the country. Terrible tax structure. The income tax harassment and the ED harassment to businessmen. Terrible. So those are the things. We need a government that is less in our lives. If I were to criticize the opposition for the wrong issues that it picks up, for the loonyism, for the wokeism that's crept into the Indian opposition. Terrible. So I think to the pandering of certain sections of society by the opposition. So I think we should criticize everybody, accept the good in everybody, and ultimately the way forward for India is the best way forward. Less taxes, less government, less laws, at the same time, no more pandering, letting people be free, valuing freedoms. I think that is what we should look for. So I'm a guy who fights for freedom.
So more Tehseen now.
Tell me.
More Tehseen. If somebody funded you to make a massive media house today, what are the things it's not doing that the media is doing currently? And let's not get into they own the media and that on the. मैं 70 साल एक का था, बाकी 20 साल 30 साल किसी और का हो गया. Sinners judging other sinners for sinning differently. Correct.
True.
If you had a media house, what would be the few things that you would course correct so that we as the larger audience can actually trust that?
So I think that's a very interesting question. I love that question. If I had the media house, I would move into online, YouTube, social media domain. Simply because I do believe very firmly mainstream media is losing credibility at a very fast pace.
Mainstream or legacy?
Legacy media, mainstream media.
Legacy
Absolutely.
media lost the US elections, we both know that.
Completely.
Completely lost it, right?
They were so out of touch, and I do believe mainstream legacy media in India is also out of touch. They do, on certain occasions, raise a few pertinent questions, but I do believe, by and large, legacy media is fast losing its credibility. I don't think people are now looking at legacy media for their news. They're looking more at social media, which at times is dangerous.
Very.
They are looking at, but I think a lot of people get their information now from other avenues rather than legacy media. Legacy media also is divided to those who are pro the government, those who are pro the opposition, and both of them don't bridge that gap. So I think actual issues that affect the common people, that actually should work for India. Nobody's discussing it. The legacy media just doesn't know how to make that switch, and I think that's terrible for the country.
Got it. They're seen as the CEO or the managing director or the founding partner of that media house. Okay.
Right.
You need to make it happen globally.
True.
What are you telling Google to do?
Well, it's not just Google.
Or for that matter, any AI drivens, or for that matter, what are you course correcting so that we trust you? Simple as that. It is not about left, right, BJP, Congress.
I think, see, for example,
very simple question.
That's
because that's your tool, right? That's what
true.
I'm asking you. It's not my tool yet.
And I love what Elon's done with X.
Okay, fair.
I love that. So there is something called community notes, which instantly fact checks. Now the issue with fact checks is I have a problem with fact checkers because
because yes,
they're political. All fact checkers are political, either side of the divide. They have a political agenda. Now I'm not saying fact checkers shouldn't exist. I believe in free enterprise. I believe people have a right to do business. But fact checkers are only politically driven. So how do you fact check something?
No, how will you fact check? How will you figure your fact checkers out?
So something like a community notes. Now when I have, because we're talking about hypothetical media situation that I have, I would obviously be video driven. It would obviously be on YouTube or some platform of that sort, or maybe on some social media platform. But I would definitely incorporate something like a community notes where the common viewer can put the facts in, thereby allowing the fact check to happen. That I think is mind-blowing because the minute community notes comes in, you can't lie. I firmly believe, since Elon's taken over X, I believe a lot of propaganda has reduced. I do believe that. A lot of lies has reduced because you can immediately fact check. Anybody can fact check. Now that is the important thing to do. So if you have something that allows the common man or the historian or the common person or whoever to put the correct facts out, I think that will immediately set the propaganda right. I don't believe in restricting speech. I don't believe that speech should be curtailed.
We were just having a conversation about your hypothetical media house. Let me rephrase that question. Do you believe in restriction of media or a decorum of media? And if so, are you governing it or are you interfacing with then incumbent? Because it could be yours or someone else's.
So individual speeches make up the complete media. The media would obviously be an amalgamation of individual voices. So I firmly believe voices should not be restricted. Free speech should exist. Firmly believe that.
Okay.
Which is why, do I have a problem with fact checkers? I don't think fact checkers should be banned. I firmly believe they should be corrected, or they can do their own thing and ignored because they're politically driven. But now when we're talking about individual free speech or a media free speech, that should come within the realm of decorum. I do believe decorum. So if I can give you an individual example, every time I'm criticizing the Prime Minister or the Home Minister, even on television or on social media, I always try to say the Honorable Prime Minister, the Honorable Home Minister. You be within the decorum. You can be critical. You can be brutal in your criticism of policy. That should not transcend into a personal attack.
Which It often happens. So see, it's I'm in my late 40s. You're, I don't know, younger, older than me. We've lived through previous governments as well.
Yeah.
But we have not lived through previous governments in the age of social media enough for us to have an actual debate, substantial debate. उस ज़माने में रेडियो होता था, कोई कुछ बोल देता था. The decorum seems to have gone out of whack completely on both the sides. वो तो मतलब कौन ही ऐसे debate करता है? Let's not even talk about India. We literally had a debate with Trump, Zelensky, and J.D. Vance. You know how that went. It was unlike what we have seen. Now, regardless of what we think, that decorum, I see a little bit of semblance of that in you. Hence, we're here, and that's a very, very refreshing thing, because for anybody who is actually a nationalist is not equal to a fascist.
True.
Thank you very much, regardless of who the Prime Minister
Absolutely.
is. We were big fans of Rajiv Gandhi ji. Massive. We remember Y2K, we remember NASCOM. And of course, life has changed, our priorities have changed. We are now with the incumbent government. With the media in your mind, Tehseen, I do see you as quite a vociferous and a very welcoming speaker to the persons who do not actually support your party. Are you officially with Congress?
No, I'm
You're
not.
So that seems
But I am a Congress voter. I've always put
agreed,
that out.
not debating.
Always put that
Right.
out, yeah.
Now, how does that work out? How, are you continuously trying to balance the act?
There is no balance.
There is no act, actually.
There's no act,
How are
so
you
there is no
trying to
balance.
balance it? How does it work out? Was it hard to get here?
Hard to get here, I'll come to. But how does it work out? It's common sense. If you just apply common sense, I think 80 to 90% of our problems would be solved. We can have an argument based on common sense. We can agree that I disagree with you, and then we can take it forward. Now, you said something very interesting to start this off. The whole Trump, J.D. Vance, Zelensky showdown in the Oval Office. I'm very traditional, so I would not like something of that sort to happen. And I did visualize myself in a situation like that. And when I visualize myself, and I do have my sympathies for Ukraine, at least in the
Fair
beginning
enough.
I did, Zelensky was completely out of line. Completely out of line. To begin with, even before he entered the White House. So at the beginning of the war, and even now, I do have my sympathies for Ukraine. I firmly believe Russia did begin the aggression. There is no doubt in my mind about that. But as Prime Minister Modi said, this is not the era for war. Having said that, when you look at what Zelensky did before coming to the White House for this meeting, there were continuous propaganda on US legacy media, including on social media, that the American administration was not in touch with Zelensky. That's not true. They were completely in touch. They were talking regularly. That particular meeting was just supposed to be the mineral steel meeting. To make that about President Putin was a terrible thing to do. You don't treat your host that way. A host you're dependent on. The fact is, as President Trump said, he gave him the missiles, the javelins. Nobody else gave Zelensky anything. The early reverses that Russia saw when they came into Ukraine was because of the ammunition that President Trump had given. And to go there and keep bad-mouthing President Putin at a time when President Trump wants this peace deal so badly, and to create a fake narrative of security. Because once the critical minerals were being mined out there, that is security, that's a security guarantee itself, because American lives would be mining it, and Russia would not attack American lives. Surely there are no American boots on the ground. Surely. But if there were American boots on the ground, that was the whole reason for the first war, that Russia and Putin justifiably did not want NATO, Ukraine to be a part of NATO. He didn't want that presence next to his border. So then, if American boots come on the ground, how does that work? American lives can be there mining. And I think to that extent, it was a fair deal that President Trump was trying to do. Now, it may work or not work. I firmly believe, instead of President Trump, if there was any other Democrat president, left-leaning president, the world would be singing his praises. So President Trump was trying to get a peace deal. Zelensky ruined it, completely ruined it. Ruined it so badly. But having said that, I still don't think this should be for the camera. President Trump then allowed it to go for the camera. He told JD, no, let the American people see what is happening. He told the vice president, let them see what is happening. And I think Zelensky completely played the wrong guy. It's like poker. He had no cards. and he tried to bluff.
Except a cover on Vogue, he literally didn't have much cards after that in the middle of a war. That just, it wasn't great brand building according to me. Even if it was right, it was just bad brand building.
And Europe's encouraging him when Europe doesn't have an army.
On that, now that I hear you, I've been dying to ask this question. In which universe the left liberals, the new left, because liberals used to be a great thing. Progressives is a great thing. 1800, 1920, 40, 50, 60s, they wanted to progress. Liberals today are not the same. What is it about leftism that the Indian left relates to the US with absolutely nothing in common? I will give an example. With due respect, there was a Black Lives Matter movement. Still persists. The rightfully people were hurt. Rightfully they in their country asked for, let's say, help, cry for help. That was okay. It was years ago. The same thing in India, when it came to the Hindus, is not okay.
Yeah.
Because it was years ago.
So to begin with, I do believe the left liberals in India, which is an oxymoron, because they're not liberal.
Okay.
They're not at all liberal. They're loonies. So let's call them the left loonies in India, live in a parallel universe. Part of being in a parallel universe is denying Hindu fellow citizens the wrong that has happened to them. We live in a state of denial. And if you were to speak about it, you were to be seen as a bigot.
Yep.
That's the problem. And when you have 70-80% of this country, and a large section of that 70-80% hurt by something that has happened, it's generational trauma. And then you have the other side not just denying it, making you feel like a bigot for saying, look, I was kicked out of my house in Kashmir. Or look, there was these targeted attacks on me because I'm Hindu. It sets you back. You can never win an election. Forget it's a terrible thing to do as humanity. Even electorally, even politically, it's a terrible thing to do because the majority of people are carrying that generational trauma. And the way to address that generational trauma is to first accept that it happened and say, look, how can we now reconcile with the wrongs that have happened and make sure that we learn from history so that this is never ever repeated in the future. But we don't. And I think that is terrible because our Hindu fellow citizens have gone through their share of trauma pre-independence, during independence, the movement, just immediately the partition, and post-independence, Kashmir being one, Punjab being another. We often talk about our Sikhs who were attacked in Punjab, and rightfully so, our Sikh fellow citizens were. But so many deaths in Punjab were also of Hindu fellow citizens. When will we start addressing what our Hindu fellow citizens have gone through? We don't. And I think that is terrible. And then to somebody who speaks about it is looked as a bigot. I think that's a terrible thing to do. So I think the first thing the left liberal in India, and again, the left loony, I don't want to call them liberal, is to accept the problem and then try and see how we can heal it.
How does one do it, Tehseen? Now, hypothetically, you have your own party.
Yeah.
Second hypothetics we're talking about today. One
Okay.
is a media house. So that I can make it personal enough for me. Because when it comes from you, someone like me who's like, maybe. But now you're taking responsibility in a way where saying, okay, I have a hypothetical party. What are the decorums? Because you first start with decorum.
Correct.
तभी तो trigger होते हैं, नहीं तो फायदा क्या है? दोनों sides. I'm talking about both the sides. आपने एक party बनाई है. It's an independent party. Not BJP, not Congress, whatever. However you're going to pull that off.
We'll call it a liberal party.
Okay, fine. Done over a liberal party.
Truly Indian liberal party.
Truly Indian Liberal Party. What are the truly Indian Liberal Party, TILP, will not have and will not do?
The TILP, and I like the T and the P because, yeah.
Yeah.
So the TILP will not gaslight people, number one.
I like that.
Gaslighting is terrible. If groups have gone through trauma, you accept it, you work with them. That's the first thing to do. You acknowledge historical wrongs. You may not today in 2025 be able to correct what has gone wrong, but you could at least acknowledge it. And I think acknowledgement is a very powerful tool, one. Two, what would TILP do? Reduce the laws in India. 80% of the laws, 70% of the laws throughout. Three, new laws that are made would not be more than a page long. 3 paragraphs maximum
You think it's
a
that
page.
simple? For
Oh
such an
yes,
old
absolutely.
constitution?
If you have to explain the laws, those laws will be misused by bureaucrats.
Sometimes people say giving management, let me reframe it, giving management targets versus executing. It is two different things.
True, but I don't have to give management targets. I have to cut the laws off. And I'm going to cut them off. I'm going to reduce 60-70% of these stupid laws in our country. And more importantly, the new laws that are formed and the old laws. No law will be more than a page long. Period. 3 to 3 paragraphs.
Happen.
If you have to explain a law, the law will be misused by the bureaucrats. The second thing TILP would do, on the first...
We're actually calling it TILP.
Yeah. The hypothetical
We're painting
party.
it, yeah.
The second thing it would do, as soon as it comes to power, in my first cabinet meeting, make provisions for cutting off 50% of bureaucracy. 50% bureaucracy will go out. That day, they can go to court, they can go anywhere, and if any judge tries to stop me, the judges will also have to face this collegium system. That will be the third thing that will change. There will be a collegium system, I get that. They can go through their collegium system, recommend names, which will go through a parliamentary screening committee led by the opposition, not led by the government, because I don't want to be influencing the courts because I will be fighting 50% of the cases against the government. So let the opposition lead it, but let judges go through a parliamentary screening. So they can have their collegium, sit in their high tea room, see who they want, but those people will finally be approved by parliamentary screening committee. And they will have to lobby with both the opposition and me, my government, to get through there. And the only test of that lobbying is liberalism, upholding the constitution that guarantees freedoms. The fourth thing I would stand for is freedom, complete freedom. I would not have this jackass of, for example, putting people in jail for no reason. That's not done. Police reforms, that's the next. Police will not be in our lives. They will be there. The government will be restricted to 4 things: life and liberty, to protect life and liberty, number 1. To protect your private property, that's the government's duty. So no group suddenly gets up and decides they can break a hotel down, break a podcast studio down,
So no activism.
No, government is out of activism.
Absolute hotbed
Government
of the
will be involved in only 4 things: in your life, your guarding your property, the nation's defense, and finance. Beyond that, finance and communication, the government has no role in our lives. Government will be as far away as our lives as the left loonies are out of my life.
Interesting. You're sitting in your Congress. Okay, so I just got my bill passed for you. You're the government, right? TILP. The opposition walks out. How do you handle that?
I would. So that's where this government is not doing a good job. I would regularly meet.
The then opposition keeps walking out while the proceedings are on.
Look, it's a right of theirs to walk out of Parliament or of the Assembly. I can't deny them their right.
But you do believe in decorum.
I do believe in decorum. And if they just want to walk out, that's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, I have to speak to my people who've sent me to Parliament.
Okay.
When I'm speaking as Prime Minister or as Finance Minister, as Home Minister, it's my people who've sent me there. I'm a representative of 140, 150, 160 crores, whatever India's population at that point is. It'll start declining after 160 crores, but I have to speak to my people. I'm everybody's Prime Minister, right? So if the opposition wants to act like loonies and keep walking out or shouting, as long as they're not shouting, if they want to walk out, they could. But I would prefer a debate. I would not prefer a monologue in Parliament. So unlike what the current government does, where the opposition speaks, then the government speaks and nobody, and then it's chaos, I would actually welcome a debate with the leader of...
But there are 2 kinds of aggression. One is aggression,
Correct.
And one is passive aggression.
Passive aggression, yes.
Passive aggression is equitably at fault.
Yes.
Right? Passive aggression is respond नहीं करना. तो फिर आगे कैसे बढ़ोगे? तो parliamentary proceeding आगे से बढ़े. मैं आपके government की बात कर रही हूँ.
I'm talking about
TILP.
I'm talking about me. When I'm Prime Minister, I'm sitting in the House. I'm not saying I'm going to give a speech. I'm saying I want you to ask me questions. Ask me a question, I'll get up and I'll answer it.
I would love that. I hope I'm alive by then. I would love that.
What happens in UK Parliament, what happens in Canada Parliament? Why? Are you going to die in 5 years, 7 years? I will be running the country in 10 years, so you will be alive.
Thank you. I've seen a few, and I'm a vociferous, I watch American politics more than Indian, and the parliamentary proceeding there also went to shit.
The House, the Senate.
I am sorry, but in the earlier governments, there used to be a decorum.
True.
after, this is not a conversation about Trump versus Biden, but somehow the old schoolism of conservatives works in a parliament. I'm not saying the debate works, I'm not saying the ideology works.
I do agree with that.
But there's this whole like Tandav doing, I don't believe in it.
Yeah, especially in American houses, the AOCs and the Ilan Omars and
my God.
And the Rashida, oh God, the disaster.
I saw that.
I saw that. All of them are disastrous.
And they have to sit and have a laugh at what we do with the largest democracy. Hello, we did a pretty good job.
Bernie Sanders.
I mean,
imagine somebody like
Nancy Pelosi.
But do you remember she tore the paper?
I saw a few things.
If I'm Prime Minister and people are walking out, the opposition, the one more thing that I will do, which I believe, and I'm going to be heavily criticized for this, but I firmly believe in this. Firmly, I can stake everything on this. The whip system must be used sparingly. So the whip will not apply, for example, if there's a walkout. Like the American system, which I believe.
The whip up votes.
Yeah, where a Republican can still vote against a Republican or the Democrat can still, you have to convince the senator, you have to convince the member of the House. Whip can only apply to the budget or if the government is falling, not for any other reason. That's not in the American House, but in other parliaments. The whip will only apply for the budget or if the government is falling. For everything else, the whip will not apply. Therefore, individual members will be at ease, even though if, say, hypothetically, I'm in government and the Congress is walking out or the BJP is walking out, the whip won't apply. So those members of parliament who want to make an impression by taking on the Prime Minister and speak will sit, because that whip, I will throw this whip system out. Because again, it's a paradox. The parliament is supposed to be the mother of democracy, the biggest house of democracy, the temple of democracy. And yet in the temple of democracy, the members of parliament are not free to take a line they completely believe in. They have to take the line that the party wants, even though they may not align with that line. Let me give you an example. Many people in the Congress aligned with the BJP's line on 370 when the Prime Minister abrogated it. But because of the way it was structured, and actually the Congress gave a very good statement. But I remember Ghulam Nabi Azad, the kind of things he said in Parliament and others, it made the Congress's perception look bad. So I'm just giving an example that maybe if this whip system goes, the whip only applies if the government is falling, so you can't get your own government down. That equally applies to me in government because my MPs will keep me on track as well. Tomorrow, if I'm going to be unreasonable, my MPs can go with the other side and put me in trouble. The whip will not apply. Whip in parliamentary proceeding is anti-democracy, in my opinion.
So we've just had a conversation about you in the future. Let's say, hypothetically, you have a party called TALP. Who are you firing on the day one?
Bureaucrats, 50%.
Without reason or with compliances?
That will be my poll promise.
What's your filter?
Filter will be, you don't need so many people in a department to work. And with AI and quantum computers coming in, they'll do the job. You don't need so many people to create roadblocks.
When I downloaded ChatGPT the first time 2 years ago, it says, can you please not ask me questions before 2021? I have no bloody knowledge. Will you rely on it if that party starts tomorrow? To have that kind of complex knowledge?
No, I won't. It'll aid. It will be an enabler. It won't be the decision maker. In any case, AI will never be a decision maker. It'll be an enabler. But the roadblocks have to go. First decision, cut 50% bureaucracy. Second decision, the collegium system will be met by a parliamentary screening committee. And the third decision, which is very important, will be laws that are more than a page long, will all be condensed in a page.
Okay, so you fired the bureaucrats. Who are you hiring?
You have to hire people. You got to reduce people.
Who would you hire first from the political ecosystem as your aide, advisor, one man, or a woman?
From the current political ecosystem. You mean from the current? From the current political system, if I had to pick one, Sachin Pilot.
Why?
I think he's magnificent. Speaks English, speaks Hindi, bilingual, acceptable, political bent of mind.
Tenure. Resilience.
Yeah.
All good things.
Yeah, very good. So somebody like a Sachin Pilot.
So you sat with then the Prime Minister of Pakistan, day 2, after filling your cabinet.
Why would I sit with the Pakistan Prime Minister?
Hypothetically, you're sitting.
No, I'll sit if I have to discuss Pakistan, I'll discuss it with the army chief.
No, you're not discussing Pakistan. You just have a formal meeting First time as the Prime Minister.
My deputy Prime Minister can meet the Prime Minister of Pakistan.
You're not going to meet him at all.
I don't need to meet. The Prime Minister of Pakistan has no power. The army chief runs the country.
Fair
Foreign
enough.
policy is run by them. If the army chief wants to see me, he can meet my army chief and then, in protocol.
What are you negotiating for India on our behalf?
With Pakistan? Nothing. I have nothing to do with Pakistan.
We don't need to negotiate.
At all. We don't need to talk to Pakistan. Except at a military level and a track 2 level. Because both countries have nuclear weapons. There could be an accidental firing of a missile here or there, if something goes wrong. So you need to have that hotline accepted. You have the Indus Treaty, a couple of treaties, so you could discuss that at a track 2 level. Junior diplomats, maybe the high commissioners can talk. Government doesn't need to talk to Pakistan. Why do you need to talk to Pakistan?
Just asking.
No.
Unless
Unless they're okay to give me back POK, then I'll talk to them.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
We
Unless they're giving me back POK, I don't need to talk.
you. I like you.
I don't need to.
Two friends of mine, not really close friends, but friends of mine. One is Abdullah. Hi. The other is Viren.
Hi, Abdullah.
On the other side, Viren.
Hi, Viren. Hi, Abdullah.
Abdullah is from Delhi. Viren is from Bombay.
Okay.
I asked them that I'm sitting with you. What would you want to ask? अगर आपकी गवर्नमेंट को इंडियन मुस्लिम्स का वोट मिलता है तो सिर्फ स्पीचेस नहीं लार्जर लेवल पे 3 स्पेसिफिक काम ग्राउंड रियलिटी में आप कब और कैसे इम्प्लीमेंट करेंगे अगर आप प्राइम मिनिस्टर हुए?
First of all, Indian Muslims economically are way behind a lot of other communities in the country. So the educational empowerment is a must. सबसे पहला काम जो मैं करूँगा, ये जितने भी मौलाना हैं जो टीवी पे आकर बात करते हैं और कम्युनिटी के रिप्रेजेंटेटिव होने का दावा करते हैं जो एक्चुअल में वो नहीं है, जैसे हाल में वो मौलाना साहब ने कहा शमी पानी नहीं पी सकते रमज़ान के दौरान जबकि वो देश के लिए खेल रहे थे, इन सब मौलानाओं को बैन करूँगा. सबसे पहला काम मौलाना बैन. नो मौलानाज अलाउड ऑन टीवी. ये ऐसे अलाउड ही नहीं होगा. सेकेंड थिंग, आई विल वर्क एंड स्ट्राइव दैट द कम्युनिटी इंटीग्रेट्स with completely is more cosmopolitan.
In any country, assimilate you mean?
Completely integrates and assimilate. In a cosmopolitan and the cosmopolitanism of India, along with the Islamic community, which is very cosmopolitan by the way. It is the few radical or the few extremists who sort of create a perception against the community. Most Muslims in India are very well integrated. But that integration should be seen publicly with the people. There shouldn't be a difference. And third, and most important, is education for the Muslim girl child and the Muslim boy child. Because I think Muslims somewhere in the educational sector are not going as forward. So whatever is the obstacle, that should go. And fourth, teaching English.
You answered his second question. Thank you for that. His second question is, what is your overall vision for Indian Muslims? You did say that. Specifically in tier 2 cities, many Muslim women are still affected by a mentality.
Right.
How will you empower them?
The constitutions will empower them. Any
The one you changed or the one
I won't change the constitution at all. I will never change the constitution. I will implement the constitution which guarantees you freedom and liberty. I will never change it. So the Muslim girl will enjoy the same freedom and liberty as Shweta does, as any other girl does.
That's
and
lovely.
anyone trying to bully a girl of any religion, particularly if she's from backward communities or challenged communities, and they try to be conservative, they will see the wrath of the government. यहाँ पर पुलिस का डंडा पड़ेगा. आप लड़की को रोकोगे तो पुलिस का डंडा पड़ेगा.
We do need enforcement force.
That enforcement will come there.
Second question from Viren Merchant from Bombay. Viren, hi.
Hi, Viren.
He has the question is long. Let me pick one.
Okay.
As Bharat strides towards positive and inclusive growth, which are the specific growth parameters you, as an independent political observer, or maybe in your next in your next avatar, want the BJP NDA central government to undertake urgently as introspection and corrective measures?
So corrective measures is the tax terrorism. The tax terror in our country is phenomenal.
Tax terror in any big capital.
In India, it's gone out of hand. It's gone out of hand.
How do you measure that?
You
This versus that.
You cannot be.
How do you know?
The tax authorities cannot be draconian. They must understand that entrepreneurs are doing a service to this nation. Without entrepreneurs, our nation will collapse. So we need to encourage entrepreneurship. We need to have more entrepreneurs. And you cannot be an entrepreneur if you have a gun on your head. Business should be easy in, easy out. If you make a loss, it should not be criminally prosecuted as long as you pay off your liabilities, pay off your dues, and you leave. You cannot have, once a person pays his or her taxes, the government cannot put more taxes. So all these sub-taxes, long-term capital gains, short-term capital gains, this tax, that tax, cess, everything will go. I will restructure tax rates, bringing them in tune, simplify the tax rates. You will have only 3 tax rates. GST will be simplified, only 2 rates in GST, 5% and 12%. Roti, kapda, makan 5%, everything else 12%. And the essentials will be 0%. Because the essentials are 0%, the input on the essentials will also be 0%. So that's it, 5%, 12%, 2 GST rates, 3 income tax rates. Once you pay your tax, do what you want with your money, the government cannot intervene.
Fair. I'm not here to contradict that or even
That will
question
increase the per
that.
capita income.
Fair enough. I'm not an economist. I won't claim to be. I'm not a journalist. I won't claim to be. The taxation overseas is something ridiculous. I lived overseas for almost 15 years. 11, 1, 1, 1, 1.
Yeah.
I do think.
But Trump's trying to reduce it.
Yeah, I hear that. Me being, I think people who travel and call the West, in a larger term, really easy to live, have not lived there and have not paid taxes there. They've just commuted there. They've just spent vacations there. In a way. While you're right about it, we can have like a very big argument about how you're actually more relaxed doing what you're doing. I don't come from a lot of capital myself, and I really think the businesses on the ground, Redi wala, Holi wala, Color wala, Mithai wala, they're thriving in a way. That hyper-local Indian economy is what keeps the Indian economy afloat regardless of what your GDP looks like, your trends look like, your dollar or INR looks like. I am asking, how are you helping the ones on the ground there, udhar, jo actually encroach karke bhi bech rahe lekin dhanda chala rahe hain? How are you going to manage that?
Okay, so you've asked a different question, so let me come to that.
Fair.
But before that, in the West, yes, the taxes are high. But if the taxes are high, you get hospitalization, you get education, you get quality services from the government. See the European countries, see the Scandinavian countries. That's not the case in India. People must have right to healthcare and education. So what I will do, and taking that forward for the common man who's the rediwala, the person who's got a stall on the road, etc., is give them dignity in labor, dignity in their business. Entrepreneurship will be seen as nation building. You will be treated as entrepreneurs. No municipal authority can come and throw them out. No cops can come and beat them up.
Even if they're encroaching?
No,
Just
obviously
asking.
they're encouraged. So you make spaces for hawkers.
You're talking about organized business.
Absolutely. You bring them in the organized sector. And to bring them in the organized sector, you've got to have no taxes or very less taxes. Otherwise, why would they be motivated to come in the organized sector? So the first thing to do is to bring them in the organized sector. But to bring them in the organized sector, I have to reduce taxes. I have to have no taxes. At the same time, I will have to give them certain rights, certain facilities. So once they're in the organized sector and they're protected by certain rights, certain facilities, and a low tax rate, you will see entrepreneurship boom.
Fair
That's
enough.
one.
Now, in all your debates, and I see you on TV, here, there, everywhere, is anybody from the other side, this could be incumbent, this could be a part of the opposition, or it could be somebody you've worked with, has been kind to you while on camera, any one incident, though he didn't need to be or she didn't need to be?
No, by and large, everyone is kind to me. But I also think that comes from the fact that I am a polite person to talk to, and I don't make debates personal. So I enjoy brilliant relationships with everybody across the spectrum, period.
Is that your brand?
That is my brand. It's not to achieve something, it's just the human being that I am. I prefer to have good relationships. I don't make it personal.
Will it be at the cost of asking hard questions?
No, never at the cost of asking hard questions. I am in this podcast criticizing the Prime Minister and the government. But that's my right. That's my duty. I would fail in my duty if I did do that. But I don't have to be personal or be abusive to do that. There's a difference in
It'd
the
be
two.
nice to hear 2 good things about the Prime Minister.
I think 2 good things about the Prime Minister. I love the
5.
I love the fact that he withdrew 370, Article 370. I think that was
It
fabulous.
was massively contentious, like it was.
I don't think it was
spoke about
I
for
think
years.
I think it had to go, and it did. Number 2, I like his leadership on a global scale. Putin yesterday thanked him for trying to bring in peace between Russia and Ukraine.
People say it's staged and all drama.
Could be that Putin does not want to peace now. Europe has a point of view that this will be the first time after World War II a country that's been the aggressor will actually get to keep the land they've already annexed, which after World War II is going to happen for the first time, which makes Europe very nervous. I do understand the complexities, but listen, between nations there will be complexities. So let's not simplify. There will be a lot of layers. Those layers will have to be moved and you will have to work out. So 1 month ceasefire is good. But the Prime Minister did tell Putin it is not a time for war. So I think that's good. His leadership with regards to the Middle Eastern countries, India's relationships with them, I think it is fantastic. So we've not really tinkered too much with our foreign policy from the time of Nehru to now. We've been consistent and that's the great thing. But what I do like about the current government and our foreign policies, if you look at something like Quad, which was born when Manmohan Singh Ji was Prime Minister with the Japanese Prime Minister then Shinzo Abe, they thought about this in 2007. Quad was later on formed. India is a part of Quad, India is a part of BRICS. Now BRICS, India is the only member in BRICS where all the other countries are anti-West and India is the country that can be a bridge between these countries and West. So I like this symmetry. What I would like to see in the foreign policy a little bit more is a slightly more important leadership in the global south, because when I have to be a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, I would need a global south vote. So I would like to see a slightly more leadership in the global south, which India enjoys tremendous clout in, not lose that. So that's something I would like to push a little bit more. A little bit more relationships with Africa, particularly East Africa. We must need to...
East Africa,
yeah,
okay.
because that's trading. We'll have our security
But
interest
you have
there.
a massive
We have our security
South
interest.
Africa, UK, India, Gujarati highway.
That's
the
true.
trade highway. That's a
Yes,
massive
that
highway.
is massive. But
That's massive.
East Africa will be where the next growth in the world will take place. That's also a strategic area.
Fair
We don't
enough.
want Chinese interference there and Chinese involvement there. And when people ask me how I view India, of course a global power is good, but I'll view India as a global partner, as a super partner versus a superpower. A superpower will follow if you're a super partner. I want to partner
Nicely
with the US,
said.
I want to
Nicely
partner with Russia, I want to partner with Israel, I want to partner with rebuild Gaza, I want to partner with South Africa, I want to partner with China where I need to partner. I want to be a global partner,
Fair enough.
a super partner.
Fair enough. In your vision of India, you really don't have to actually even be an active participant of anything. You just have to be a citizen of India.
Sure.
What would be a few things you would tell people on the ground when they're absorbing news, when they're absorbing debates? How do they keep themselves contextually smart? Because it's very easy to sway now.
It's a difficult question to answer simply because...
Just thoughts.
No, I'll tell you why it's
If
difficult.
I was the audience, मैं देख रही हूँ आप लड़ रहे हो टीवी पे किसी के साथ और डिबेट हो रहा है जो भी, not just you, I'm just being any news channel. What would be, I mean, it's so important now to reform people's minds on how they're looking at
So let me
narratives.
share a personal story. And this story is for day before yesterday when I was in Chandigarh. I met somebody who I met for the first time, and she was very well educated. We were talking, and she goes about saying things that are completely made up of WhatsApp University.
Graduates.
And then she goes like, no, but I have studied all of this. And I tried to correct her a couple of times that this is not the truth. For example, one of the things she told was, look, you know what? Jinnah wanted to be Prime Minister of Pakistan. And I go like, no, he wasn't. He was Quaid-e-Azam. He wanted to be the father of the nation. And she goes like, yeah, but because he wanted to be Prime Minister and therefore, and Nehru wanted to be Prime Minister, they got together and they decided to do a partition. So things like this. And she goes like, but actually, Nehru was a Muslim. And I go like, no, he wasn't. But even if he was Muslim, why should it matter? So it's things like this that are fed in that create prejudices. I don't like Jinnah. I think Jinnah is terrible as a human being. He ruined Pakistan completely. But to say that, to come up with what is WhatsApp history and not use So I think we should use a little bit of common sense in when we see things and consume things.
But
That is not to say that you shouldn't criticize icons. You should.
I'm
Like,
saying,
I think Jinnah was terrible. Let me just put this again. But Jinnah was never Prime Minister of Pakistan. So to come out there and to believe a narrative that has been put, Jinnah was responsible for the partition. Nehru and Gandhi were the last to accept partition. The last. To equate the two is not fair. Why would you want to put your own first Prime Minister along with a man who's monstrous like Jinnah? Why? So I just think that that's terrible. Then again, history is so complex because if you go back, you have the Congress, which was the original Hindu nationalist party. So it's so complex, it's not simple black or white, and that's what I want to tell people.
I really appreciate that because it is really not black and white at all. And when even we are debating with our friends, you see, I think people at the top collaborate, people at the bottom fight.
That's true.
It's really...
And you must. And therefore your earlier question, why am I nice to people? Because I'm not here to fight with people. I'm here to get my work done and I have to take my nation ahead. So if I have to pick up the phone and speak to anybody, even across the aisle, I will do that. If it takes me to go and meet somebody tomorrow, if I'm in government, and let's say the BJP is in opposition, I will go to the leader of opposition and speak to him or her and say, look, we have to pass this bill. This is what's required in national interest. Give me a suggestion, let's work on it, but let's do this in national interest. I don't have an ego in that. It is not personal. But to your present question, I think I would ask people to not consume everything that comes on WhatsApp.
Wonderful.
Use your common sense.
Fact check.
Think about it. Think about it. If 70 years, 75 years you've lived peacefully, what has happened that today you start believing in propaganda?
This just propped up to me. We are all in our 40s, so we've done our schooling those years. Way pre-BJP. We're talking about 76. Born, to dekh liya sara. Today's day and age, I'm sitting in an absolutely nice living room. You're having a conversation. You ask everybody, which religion do you belong to? Here is the answer. You ask a Christian, they say, I'm a Christian. Aap kya hai ji? I'm a Jew. Aap kya hai ji? I'm Parsi, Zoroastrianism and all of that. Then you turn to the Hindu guy. Aap kya hai ji? I'm an atheist. Why? And you hear it pretty often, very comfortably, I am an atheist. Musliman to proudly bolta hai.
No, I'm an atheist.
You're not a Hindu atheist.
But I'm an Islamic atheist.
Exactly.
And a Parsi atheist.
So here my question again. You're sitting in a living room. Christian को मैंने पूछा आप क्या हैं? कहता I'm a Christian. Muslim को बड़े proudly बोलते हैं I'm a Musliman. They're proud of it. Jews को पूछिए, they're proud of it. I'm a Jew. Parsis को पूछिए, proudly बोलते हैं. Buddhist को पूछिए, proudly बोलते हैं I follow Buddhism. Hindu को पूछिए, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in all this. What part of the education system led them to do this? I don't care who's wrong, who's right, but you know, and I know that happens. Why, at this point, people have to be ashamed to say who they are? And why just this sector? And you know, and I know we meet them quite a lot. A lot, especially in the cities, especially in the kind of ecosystems we are. I have never seen, full respect, I've never seen a Muslim saying, I'm an atheist. You're 1%. You're not normal. You're 1%. 90% of the Christians are proud as fuck, if I can say. They're very proud. Hindus, liberals ko puche, I'm an atheist. Aapki baat nahi kar rahi main. What part of that education system went wrong for them to do?
I think what we should do now. Let me talk about the future, or what I would like to do.
Let me explain this.
Let me explain. So with the future, I'll go back to the past. I think our education system has been driven away from the core Indian values.
Okay.
We don't have values. So that answers your question, what's gone wrong, and that's what I want to bring into the education system. Look, children of the future don't need to learn, for example, capitals of countries. AI will tell it to you. You'll have it on your watch, on your specs, etc. What we need to teach children is humanity, and we need to teach them values, to be good human beings. And once you start teaching people values, core Indian values, that is Hinduism. And Hindu values are what our nation needs. Along with that, along with the values, I think what is extremely important that our country needs is going back to our roots, especially our Vedic culture, our culture of the Vedas, our culture of our books, and reading them because they're actually very scientific. When we today talk about, for example, quantum physics, that stems from Vedic knowledge. So we need to go back to our roots. We need to study that. And once you study that, we'll have a whole new dimension opening up for us as a country. And I think it's extremely important for the education system in the future to understand that, for people to follow that, for people to go back to their roots and be very proud of where we come from. Ultimately, this nation's progress has happened because 80% or 85% of this country's population, which is the Hindu population, not just allowed everyone else to assimilate, they allowed and encouraged people to grow. So it's a very giving religion, it's a very giving way of life. India is a very giving country.
India is a giving country.
We need to go back to that.
Fair enough.
We don't need to go back to the Abrahamical way or the other ways that sometimes come in, which is a right or wrong. We need to go into the more complex ideas that the Indian way of life puts forward.
I think if
and I think that's important.
You are right, but that confidence, you use the word complex ideas, but if tomorrow hypothetically you're in a leadership position, your job is to take that complex ideas and simplify it enough.
True.
So that the bureaucrats that you fired and rehired should be able to understand it, and you get a more, let's say, progressive country. Is that what you're?
We are a very progressive country.
I agree.
I think what's happened is there's been a Victorian influence post independence, and particularly now, where we've got into this fake business of Victorian culture that's come in. If we just go back to the traditional Indian way of life, which I think we need to, you will see much more liberalism, much more progressive ideas, much more dialogue. Ultimately, what is the Indian way of life? The Indian way of life is dialogue. At the end of the day, when Ram kills Ravan, and Ravan's lying dying, Ram tells Lakshman to go and imbibe knowledge from him. Even then, even in that position, there is dialogue. Ultimately, Hanuman goes to Ravan to have a dialogue. The Indian way of life is about dialogue. It's about.
I like that.
It is.
And nicely.
It's true. What is it between Karan and between Krishna and Arjun? The whole Gita is a poetry by Lord Krishna when he reveals it to Arjun, but it is a dialogue. Krishna tells Arjun, this is the way of life.
See, I would love to see the day when you and Shahzad would be Karan, Krishna and Arjun, and maybe have a conversation someday. The entire country will vote for it, you know that, right? It would be lovely.
I do. There's also, I think so.
It would be lovely. I do want to ask a few short personal questions. You can feel free to not answer. That's also there. What was the tipping point in your life where you realized, I think I'm a more centered human being, whether I belong to the incumbent or the opposition at any point at this point?
Right.
What was that tipping point for you? It has to be very personal. I don't want to hear, oh, it's lovely and centered. Really personal. It doesn't have to be acerbic or.
It wasn't a tipping point as such. It was a gradual realization.
Over a period of
the last 4 or 5 years.
Triggered by?
Some of the positions the opposition was taking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
And I would think that it's not needed.
Fair enough.
So I'd be like, no, we are wasting time on silly ideas and silly fights. Maybe the BJP was instigating it, but they're a political party, they're going to do it. Why are you taking the bait? So that.
So you think you have a fresher language from the opposition?
I am the language of the opposition today.
Fair enough. It's a fresher language. That's why people like us, or whoever else you call yourself, can hear it.
Tell me. Again, I'm so critical of the BJP. I think so many things are wrong with the BJP, particularly the finance and the handling of the economy. But tell me the alternative idea that the opposition is giving to the people.
I don't know. I see the opposition and tell me how many of them actually live on the grounds.
Even in the BJP they don't, but the opposition is completely clueless. Now, if you were to leave the two national parties out, the BJP and the Congress, only for the reason that I'm leaving them out is because both the national parties, any consensus is built along with a group of people. They may be slightly dictatorial in terms of, you may say that, okay, the Prime Minister and Home Minister in India control the BJP and the Gandhis control the Congress, but there is a process of consultation in both the national parties. So you accept that, even though there is a dominating voice. But if you leave the national parties out and you look at all the other parties across the country, regional parties, all of them are family businesses. All of them. And that is so scary. What is the contribution of these people to be leading those parties?
I think the conversation would be now then.
What is their?
Then you're saying nepotism to kahin pe bhi nahi honi chahiye.
I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to say is, in a democracy, none of the political parties regionally have any democracy. How would you represent democracy and be democratic if you yourself don't have democracy in what is the structure of the party?
How will you structure democracy if that's not the only thing in the constitution? We are also republic.
Yeah, but the republic is democratic. Without the democracy, the republic would collapse, right?
See,
do you want to be an authoritarian republic?
See, so what I like is there are so many questions from the other side.
Yeah.
And this doesn't really end here. You know, this is just great to know. I actually think a fresh perspective from the opposition side. By opposition, I really don't mean, oh, the opposition ho gaya. It could be any opposition at any
But I
time.
am the opposition today. You have to understand this. I am the only person I feel who's opposing the BJP on the right things. For example, like I've kept saying, and I repeated, a tax issue. Let me say the other things that I want to oppose the BJP in: taking away personal liberty. So these are things that completely do not align with the BJP. So you have to oppose it on the right things. You can't oppose it on issues that are not issues. For example, let me be specific. And this is one of the tipping points where I was exasperated. There was a line that was put up on the new parliament, and the opposition's issue was that the lion was growling, not smiling.
Yeah.
Why would you? And the BJP was only too happy to have that debate, to take away from its failures. If I was today the leader of opposition in parliament, I would question the Prime Minister on Manipur. I would have the Prime Minister answer me on Manipur in parliament, and I would debate that. I would ask the Prime Minister what is plan B in Bangladesh, where Hindus are being slaughtered right now. We don't have a plan B in Bangladesh. What is happening to my investments in Syria?
You're right. I'm not debating that.
Get him there.
But मैं आपको बहुत different question पूछ रही थी. You're right. I'm not going to debate. This is not a debate. I'm going to observe what you're saying. Before Trump took over Elon, one section thought democracy was over, freedom of speech is curtailed. When he gave it back, the other side said democracy is curtailed, freedom of speech is curtailed. So I think you're going to hear this from both the sides. That's not the point.
No, but you won't hear it when I'm there because freedom of speech is non-negotiable.
Fair enough.
It's non-negotiable. And I actually will encourage my opponents to be more critical of me. I would want that. So, which is why I said when the government appoints the final list of judges, parliament appoints, it will be led by leader of opposition. When the election commissioner will be appointed, the committee will have a judge, the leader of opposition, and a representative of the government. And it will be chaired by the leader of opposition. I will make these institutional changes to give. IB and RAW will not be under the government. They will have to report to parliament. The NSA will have to report to parliament. And those committees will be chaired by the opposition.
And the Speaker of the House would be?
That will be government.
I'm just joking.
But the speaker, he or she will have to be neutral.
Fair.
Remember, the Prime Minister, when he enters the parliament, bows before the speaker. The speaker is the master of the house.
Not debating that.
So the speaker may be from my party, but will not be biased. Will be biased towards the constitution and the functioning of the house.
Fair.
Please understand. Okay, you have to understand this, Shweta. When 150 crore people elect me and send me to government, when I'm sitting on the chair as Prime Minister, my responsibility is towards the people who have elected me. If I do something that's ultra-wise of the Constitution, the courts have every right to strike it down. But I say that I want to clean a river by 2029, and the court will say, no, you will clean it by 2028. Or, let me give you a more practical example. There was an incident with the Honorable Prime Minister in Punjab. When he was in Punjab, he had gone to Punjab and his SPG, and there was a blockade. The Supreme Court took cognizance of that matter and was looking over what happened with the Prime Minister's protocol. with respect to the honorable judges of the Supreme Court, what is their expertise? So I am very scared of courts getting into governance.
I agree.
It is not the courts. If I don't fulfill my job of governance, the people of India will vote me out. I cannot have unelected judges telling me what law to pass. I am answerable to my people. And that's where I feel I am answerable to my people. And that's where I feel these powers that are unaccounted for, they need to be kept under check. But if I do something that's ultra-wise to the Constitution, the courts must immediately strike it down.
वो बड़ा चाहिए ना हमें. You see when the passions run high, you wanna do the right thing, but when you're actually ready to do the right thing, you realize there's so much more to that environment to pull off this most amazing color.
Yeah, but look, it's very simple. It is extremely simple. Just follow the Constitution. The Lakshman Rekhas have been drawn in the Constitution. So one of the things I will do with bureaucracy is, with an enlarged bureaucracy, what's happening is they're sucking up to politicians and
forever or now?
Forever, and getting things done which are not in tune with the Constitution. Once the bureaucracy is trimmed, they don't need to suck up to the politician.
There's nobody there.
Because now there is less people for less resources. Right now there are too many people for too little resources. So, to make it simple for your viewers, an IAS officer would like to be posted in Noida or Gurugram or Delhi versus being posted in some remote town somewhere. So he sucks up to the politician and does what is not strictly by law, only because he wants to keep his posting in Noida, or her posting in Noida, or her posting in Delhi, or her posting in Ghaziabad, or her posting in Gurugram, etc. When you've cut down 50%, so there are only those many postings, so by default they will be there. You don't have to take the wrong things that I'm asking them to do.
I hope AI is able, or I hope AI or such kind of improvisations are able to help a country where one policeman, a daroga, who's actually not armed like they are in US, is responsible for, I don't know, 5 to 6 miles radius of such density, versus in the US where they're literally responsible for one county with quarter the density.
So with AI robots, policing robots, that will solve the problem. That's coming, AI policing robots. And they will be controlled by the policeman on the beat, who doesn't need to be armed. So we will see crime reduce. They will also maintain a data record. So we will survey those crimes. We will have a data and we'll understand what area precisely faces what crimes to what extent, and have specific policies developed for those areas to solve those crimes. But there is another thing that we need to do, and which I will do. I will bring in AI into judiciary, and I will increase the retirement age for judges at the lower level, so that judges who are retired can come back. And I will take the courts to the people, because 60 to 70% of our courts are choked up with civil disputes and family disputes or property disputes. So rather than coming to the trial court, let me take the trial court in a mobile van to areas and solve those disputes, thereby freeing up my judiciary and allowing the water of the judiciary to flow faster. I will also do one more thing, which is my big idea. We will have one constitution.
Have we heard this right about now, or that one idea I would want to hear at Shweta Talkies?
No, I haven't said it before, but I will tell you at Shweta Talkies. I will have a constitutional court. So the Delhi Supreme Court will be the constitutional court. And we'll have 5 Supreme Courts, or 4 Supreme Courts: North India, South India, East India, West India, maybe Central India.
That's simply speaking.
Yes. So these Supreme Courts will be the final places where people can go to appeal. The Constitutional Court in Delhi will only sit on constitutional matters. Can you imagine right now, for example, in Ranveer's case, Alabadia's case, beer biceps, the Supreme Court had to sit on bail? It's not the Supreme Court's job to sit on bail. It's a lower court.
Tiny question while you do it. Goa doesn't have a court. The Court of Bombay sits in Goa. How do you manage that?
No, so you create more high courts. Those are specific questions. So you got to create more high courts. You could have various benches. You can have more benches. Like you have the Lucknow bench, the Allahabad bench. You can have more benches. You have the Haryana and Punjab bench. You can have more benches. Perhaps have a Gurugram bench. So that takes care of this side of Haryana. I don't know. You have to see what the
You're going to paint a picture for your dream.
Yeah, it can't be a solution I have now. It has to be case by case. But when you interrupted me, the more important thing that I had to say was, you need a constitutional court in Delhi. The rest of the Supreme Courts can be 4 or 5 in the 4 or 5 centers of the country, and your final appeal goes there. And you take, along with that, you take your mobile courts to the people, solve 70 to 80% of the problem. And I think that is the way the judiciary should function. That frees up your judiciary, that frees up your cases.
I hope your dream as a observer right now versus an executioner soon works out for you.
It will. It is reality. It is a reality I live. I do see that, and I do see me doing that. I firmly believe that I would do that when I'm in government. Otherwise, why would I be in government? If I have to maintain status quo, I don't need to be in government. I have a great life. I'm sitting in a great hall, came in a great car, have great people outside. My life is great. If I have to do something, the rest of my life has to be to make this country even more progressive and give my people better life.
We like that. What are your vision for yourself in 2029?
I haven't specifically thought of a vision, but I do believe 2029 I will lead the opposition. I do think that. 2034 I
believe it, you hope it, you are it, which
I
bit?
live it.
2025 has got a big year for manifestation.
Yeah, 2029 I will lead the opposition.
Nicely
They see, the opposition also needs somebody who can raise real issues, not the issues that are being raised. And they don't need people who don't have the capacity to do it. Like I said, all the regional parties, look at them today. They're all run by people who sometimes you wonder why are they there. It's all family fiefdoms. So you need a grounded man who understands what India needs, understands the need of an aspirational India. You're talking about issues the opposition is raising that is outdated. I want to give my people better houses, better jobs, better lifestyle, an aspirational, more freedom of speech, more freedoms, more liberty. Here you're getting both sides, the government and the opposition are just bringing in laws to cramp everything or curb everything.
Both of them need to get their things straight. Mr. Poonawalla, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shweta.
For this lovely conversation. I'm going to be here and you'll be invited for that little dream again.
Yeah. So, though I'm fasting, but cheers.
I know he's fasting.
Yeah.
He did this without water. I've been drinking tea the whole day.
That's okay. I fast for Ramzan, Navratra, Shravan, everything.
Truly, we like that. We like that. I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. I did. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on Shweta Talkies.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.